is recognized.
I'd like to give my time over to the chair, ranking member.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. I want to pick up where the gentleman from North Carolina was walking. He talked about a pattern. Just again, think about the history here. A year ago, the chairman of this committee, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, introduced a bill to pack the court. And that bill didn't add 1 justice, didn't add 2 justices, didn't add 3. It added 4 justices. Now, why would they pick 4? Anyone know why they might pick 4 justices? Because it's packing the court. They want 4 liberal justices to dominate then a 7-6, 13-member court. So a year ago, they introduced a bill to pack the court, adding 4 associate justices to the United States Supreme Court. 2 weeks ago, they had a hearing where they trashed Justice Thomas, went after Justice Thomas. Last week, someone, probably on the left, who knows, probably on the left though, leaks a draft decision of the Supreme Court. First time it's happened. First time it's certainly happened in my lifetime. Leaks a draft decision of a court. Then this week, we have a bill that would require disclosure of anyone who files an amicus brief with the court, so they can go after donors, contributors, go after people, dox them, cancel them, whatever they're going to do, protest in front of their house. And next week, we're going to have a hearing on the same subject that was the issue of the draft opinion, a case pending in front of the court. And all while that's going on, as we speak tonight, they're protesting in front of Supreme Court justices' home. That's the history. That's what's happened. So when Mr. Bishop from North Carolina talks about a pattern, it is definitely a pattern to intimidate, a history of intimidation of the highest court in the land. That's what's going on. And during all that, we also find out the Justice Department's targeting parents. Whistleblower came forward, and over 24 parents, the counterterrorism measures of our Justice Department, of the FBI, used against moms and dads. No wonder Americans have had it. No wonder they're fed up. No wonder they're concerned. And this is the committee that's supposed to be on the lookout for this kind of ridiculous stuff. Not to be supportive of it, but to try to stop it. And we had good amendment after good amendment that the majority voted down. That's the history. And that's scary. And again, it started a year ago. I remember we were in this room when we learned that the chairman was going to have a press conference. It was like 2 in the morning. Remember, Mr. Johnson and I, a number of us spoke about it. Press conference the next day on a bill to pack the court. This is all about that. All about intimidating the United States Supreme Court. And as Mr. Bishop just pointed out, intimidating them while they're in the middle of making a decision on a critical case about the sanctity of human life. I would yield back to the gentleman from Utah, to yield to the man from Texas.
I appreciate
To Jordan.
Secretary, have you done anything right? When it comes to our border, have you done anything right? Record number last July, record number of illegal migrants coming into our country last July. That record was just broken last month, and next month you're going to make it worse. Agents turning their back on you when you speak. Agents on video on horseback patrol doing their job. Democrats call them racist. You guys throw them under the bus. Fentanyl coming across our border like we've never seen before. Are you doing anything right when it comes to the border?
Oh, Congressman, so you mentioned I've done a tremendous number of things correct, and of which I am very proud. And let me just pick up on one element of your question, and that's the element of fentanyl. Because the effort to smuggle fentanyl into our country actually comes through the ports of entry. And we have increased the interdiction of fentanyl by quite a significant amount. Through the devotion of technological resources and other.
I think there are lots of families who have been impacted by this drug who would have a different take on that, but we appreciate what you are doing at the ports of entry. That doesn't take into account what's happening outside the ports of entry. Let me just ask you this question, because this gets to the numbers and the records that you have broken month after month after month after month, 5 months in a row, and then, of course, that record was just broken last month. Do you think that maybe, just maybe, your actions and your policies are encouraging migrants to come to the border? Moratorium on deportations was announced on day 1 by President Biden. You've ended remain in Mexico. You've ended agreements with Northern Triangle countries. You've stopped building the wall. And in 25 days, Title 42 goes away. Do you think that's encouraging people to come to the border.
Congressman, the increase at the border is the result of a number of factors, and it's a regional phenomenon.
Maybe number of factors. I'm asking about those specific factors, your actions, your policies.
I do not. I think that individuals.
Come on. You went to Berkeley. You went to Loyola. You're no dummy. You understand. The folks I represent, good people, they understand that when you put those kind of policies in place, that encourages, incentivizes people to come. And I haven't even talked about the biggest incentive, Mr. Secretary. The biggest incentive for people to come is they know they're going to get released. You're going to let them go. Come to America illegally. There's no wall to stop you. We won't deport you. You won't have to stay in Mexico while we check you out, and you'll get released to wherever you want to go. We'll put you on a bus. We'll put you on a plane. Now, you may have to fly in the middle of the night because we don't want the American taxpayers who are paying for this. We don't want them to know where you're going and that we're doing this. And, of course, when they get there, I mean, this is just so common sense. Again, the folks I get the privilege of representing understand that. When they get there, you know what they're going to do? They're going to get on their phone. May not be the phone you gave them, but they're going to get on their phone, and they're going to call back home and they'll say, hey, come to America. Mayorkas is letting you in. They won't even call. They'll probably FaceTime. Hey, look, I made it. Show it around. That's what they're going to do. That's what your policies have incentivized. And the part that bugs me is that is so unfair to the American taxpayer and the American citizen. And maybe most importantly, Mr. Secretary, I think that's unfair to the people who came here legally, the immigrants who did it the right way. I think it's unfair to them. I think it's spitting in their face. Your policies are driving this influx we have seen, the record after record.
Ranking Member Jordan, can I answer your question?
So I just paused.
Because I want to speak of one success. But first, I'll return very quickly to the issue of fentanyl and opioid overdose deaths. In 2020, there were approximately 50% more opioid deaths in this country than over 2019. 2020 versus 2019. The scourge of illegal drugs in this country.
Let me ask you this, because you can. I mean, look. I want you to answer the question of your actions and your policies are driving and incentivizing people to come. People with common sense know that they are. Let me ask you this: do you think when you release 836,225 illegal immigrants into our country, do you think that is actually accomplishing the objective of the cartels? These people pay the cartels money to get here, pay them lots of money, for them lots of money, to get here, and then you're actually releasing them. Isn't that sort of accomplishing the objective of the cartels?
Congressman, those are individuals who have claimed asylum under our laws. Let me speak of one success, since I didn't have an opportunity to answer your question. In 2010, when I was in the Department of Homeland Security, I was told that one of the infirmities in our system is it takes 6 to 8 years between the time of encounter at the border and the time of a final adjudication of an asylum claim. That was in 2010. Nothing was done to address that until this administration. We promulgated,
as Mr. Gates pointed out, Mr. Secretary, 1.2 million of them went through that process. They're supposed to be removed, and you're not doing it.
We promulgated an asylum
and you're not doing it.
We promulgated an asylum officer rule that is taking effect at the end of May.
Let me ask you one last thing. 42 illegal immigrants were encountered at our border are on the terrorist and no-fly list. Are any of them still in our country?
Gentleman's time has expired.
This is an important question for this committee. Are any of them still in our country?
Congressman, I will deliver to you a response with respect to...
No. That's a simple question. Are terrorists, people on the terrorist watch list, no-fly list, are they still in the United States that you've encountered on the border?
Congressman, some of them may be still in detention. So I will...
Have any of them been released? Have any of them been released?
Time has expired.
This is critical for the... You got 42... have they been released? Will the gentleman answer that question?
Congressman, I will provide you with...
Thank you, Madam
They may have been released.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ranking Member, I believe it is my time.
Madam Chair, if I could just 1 second. I'm
no,
sorry.
the gentleman's time has expired. Ms.
We want to know if people on the terrorist watch list, have any of them been released?
Mr.
And he won't answer that question.
It is... Mr. Jordan, it is my time.
But this is about people.
It is my time.
That's a pretty important question. That's a pretty important question.
Thank you.
I can't believe
Secretary
the majority
Mayorkas
doesn't want to know the answer to that
Ranking
question.
Member Jordan.
Madam Chair, point of order. Ms. Jayapal is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, we don't give cover to anything. White nationalism is wrong. We've always said so. Everyone knows that. But I tell you who does give cover when the chairman of the Judiciary Committee says that Antifa is a myth. That is giving cover. And that is a statement made by the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee after we had testimony from FBI Director Wray talking about the dangers of Antifa, after the Attorney General Barr told us that Antifa was involved in instigating and participating in violent activity. Talk about giving cover. Give me a break. I yield 4 minutes to the gentleman, my friend and colleague from the state of Florida, Mr. Gates.
On the issue of schools, they've
Well,
said
I'm saying in general.
in general.
I mean, 7 out of 10 Americans think the country, I don't know if I've ever seen wrong track numbers this high. 7 out of 10 of our fellow citizens think the country's on the wrong track.
They're pretty bad, which is one of the reasons I speak about this issue and bring the political part of it to bear, because great confidence has been lost in this particular demographic with really good reason.
Yep.
In order to improve one's political fortunes, one needs to recognize that that happened.
Now, you said you were a mom with I think 2 children, is that right?
3 kids.
3 kids, mom with 3 kids. Everything costs more? Everything costs more today?
Yes, that's correct.
Clothes cost more for your kids, food costs more, gas to take them to some soccer practice, band practice, whatever your kids are involved with. That probably costs more too, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, and if your mom needs baby formula, that costs more too, if you can even find it. I mean, everything costs more, is that right?
If you can find it, which is another grave issue for many moms. And I would say on the issue of economic issues and inflation, just like with the school stuff, the reason I care about these things is because if it is hurting me, I know that it is hurting other people far more, because I have some amazing things in my employment. I have some flexibility. I don't have some of the things that you guys have mentioned, but I have some flexibility. I have abilities to work around this. I had the ability to teach my kids at home. I opened up my home to other people's families who did not have that ability. Because I knew that these trends were hurting other people who did not have the resources I had, far worse than they were hurting me. And I deeply want those to be acknowledged and dealt with before we move to the solution, because the problem must be acknowledged before we move to the solution.
Well said. And let's talk about some of those people who were directly impacted in a much worse way than you. Everything costs more today. They kept your kids out of school, I think you said for a year, but for more than 6 million students in the country, mostly concentrated in America's bluest metro areas, I'm reading from your testimony, they were deprived of in-person instruction for more than a year. They got the worst of it, but some 30% of American students missed 4 months. That's another 21 million kids missed 30% or more of their education. So everything costs more. They kept your kids out of school. And here's the thing that gets me. If you were a mom who showed up at a school board meeting to speak out against some of the things that were being done to your son or daughter, you might have been targeted by the Justice Department. I mean, I think you mentioned in your opening testimony the election in Virginia, Mr. Youngkin. It was a huge issue last fall. But I've never seen anything like this. We had whistleblowers come forward. Over 24 cases where this threat tag designation that Mr. Garland put in place, this apparatus and process he put in place. So they keep your kids out of school. Everything now costs more for a mom, for a dad. And if you go show up at a school board meeting to speak out against some of the things they're doing with your kids' education, oh my goodness, you may get investigated by the FBI. Such a deal for the tax-paying moms of this country.
Yeah, it's a problem because, and again, the reason I talk about this as often as I do is because a lot of families were hurt who have fewer resources than I do. And when they had the temerity to go before their public servants and ask for the public good to which they are entitled and for which they paid the same amount of taxes, even when it did not exist, they were pilloried and, in fact, sometimes targeted by federal law enforcement, which is a very, very big deal.
Now, Ms. Ham, you're a journalist, right?
Yes, I am.
And who do you work for?
CNN.
You work for CNN.
And I freelance write various other places. I've written for The Atlantic and...
So I just want to walk you through real quick, because I've never seen anything like this in my life. September 29th of last year, the National School Board Association sends a letter to the Biden administration saying use domestic terrorism acts and laws and statutes, the Patriot Act, to go after moms and dads. 5 days later, the Attorney General of the United States issues a memorandum where he actually puts in place a process, an apparatus to do just that. He sets up what he called a dedicated line of threat communication, what I would call a snitch line, so people could snitch on their fellow citizens who were showing up at these school board meetings. And then 16 days after that, now he sends that memorandum, by the way, to every U.S. attorney in the country.
And then 16 days later, the FBI sends out an email to FBI agents around the nation. And as I said, we learned from whistleblowers that they use that apparatus to go after moms and dads. So from September 29th to October 20th, they put this in place. First thing I always say is I've never seen the federal government move that fast on anything. But when it comes to chilling moms and dads' speech, oh my goodness, they could operate at record speed. That is frightening. And as a journalist, I would think you think, and as a mom, you would say the same. Is that correct?
Yes, and by the way, the sort of exodus from the National School Board Association by local school boards shows, or in some state school boards, shows that
State of Ohio got out of it.
yes, shows that this was a misstep, and it became very public, and it is a betrayal of parents who have the right to speak to their public servants, and by the way, were barred from doing so for much of the pandemic because they were not allowed to be in person, just like their children were not allowed to be in person. And I also, as a free speech enthusiast, would love for parents who disagree with me, to speak.
Sure.
Vociferously
That's called America. That's
at
called the
all
First
of these
Amendment.
meetings as
Yeah.
well. So look, it's a problem. I think it's, again, goes to the trust problem. And one of the reasons that parents will look with a highly skeptical eye on the next solution coming down the pike for them is because this very basic service was taken away from them.
Yep.
And it was taken away from them in such a way that it was very hard to address. They were left with, as you guys note, very few safety nets in some cases. And they remain rightly skeptical that their local government or their federal government in some cases is going to be able to step in and solve these problems. So I think it's very important to look to the future, and one of the things we need to recognize is that in the present, many of America's metro area schools remain unstable for the very women we're talking about, because their children have to quarantine for 10 days because they saw a person at a soccer field that
I'm
had
out of
COVID.
time, but I just want to get one more question if I could, Ms. Sam. Do you support school choice?
I do.
God bless you. I do too. I don't think.
And it's intentional. It's intentional. It has to be. The chaos on our southern border is not an accident. It's deliberate. It's on purpose. It's by design. President Biden on day one said there'll be a moratorium on deportations. He ended remain in Mexico. He terminated agreements with Northern Triangle countries, and he stopped building the wall. Those policies, done intentionally, have led to all kinds of bad outcomes. First, maybe most importantly, we get a record number of migrants coming to the border, 2.4 million. And that's the ones we know about. That doesn't count the so-called gotaways who get in that we don't have an accurate count on, but we know it's a big number. Paying cartels, smugglers, all these people paying bad guys to get them into the United States. And those cartels aren't just moving people, they're moving drugs as well. Drugs like fentanyl that is killing so many Americans, causing so much heartache for so many American families. And drugs get in because of the stress 2.4 million migrants put on our agents. Stress like Bishop Evans faced when he tragically, heroically, gave his life trying to save 2 migrants drowning. And of course, there's the bad things that happen to the people who make the journey, particularly women and children. Americans want legal immigration. President Biden and Secretary Mayorkas want illegal immigration. They want illegal migrants to come, stay, and never go home. Now, the Secretary won't say that. In fact, he says everything's just fine. He said it yesterday in 2 congressional hearings. He said it last September. Quote, "The border is secure," he told us. In the 15 months Joe Biden has been president, 2,498,224 illegal migrants have been apprehended at our border. Hundreds of thousands of others that we didn't catch, the gotaways, have also entered our country. And the Secretary says the border is secure. Think about last year. March of last year was the highest month on record for illegal migrants encountered at our southern border. Highest month in history until the month of April. And April was the highest month on record for illegal migrants coming to our country until the month of May. And May was the highest month on record until the month of June. And June was the highest month on record until the month of July, when 213,593 illegal migrants were at our southwest border. And just 2 months after that, our witness, the Secretary of Homeland Security, said the border is secure. Mr. Secretary, of over 200,000 a month, and all the ramifications that has with drugs coming in the country and other people coming in the country because our agents are so focused on that, if that's a secure border, then you are completely out of touch with the American people. That record last July, guess what? That record last July was just broken last month. And next month, they're going to make matters worse when they rescind Title 42. A record last July that was just broken last month, and next month they're going to make it worse. I want to go back to that statement the Secretary made on September 22nd of last year. That statement. There was a second part to the sentence. And this is critical. There was a second part to the statement. He said, the border is secure and we are executing our plan. The first part of the sentence was false. We know that. We know the numbers. We know what's happening on the border. Everyone understands it. The second part, we are executing our plan. The second part, he was telling us the truth. And that should frighten us all. We have a Secretary of Homeland Security who is intentionally, deliberately, in a premeditated fashion, executing a plan, his words, executing a plan to overwhelm our country with millions and millions of illegal migrants. Executing a plan that causes all kinds of harm to people who make the journey, executing a plan that results in record levels of fentanyl and other drugs entering our nation, executing a plan that stresses our border agents, stresses our education and healthcare system, stresses our nation. All done intentionally. So, Mr. Chairman, I hope we're going to have a lot of questions for the Secretary, but I hope one of the fundamental questions, maybe the fundamental question that he will answer is, why is he doing it? Why is he doing this to our fellow citizens? Why is he doing this to our country? Why is he deliberately doing this he is the Secretary of Homeland Security. Why is he intentionally doing this to our nation?